Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Frosty friggin' folks. We're playing through the DLC. Well, I guess the beta version that's going to be... I don't know when it's going to be releasing, but as far as I saw in the comments, people were saying it ends in about 3 weeks. So we're going to do as much as we can in those 3 weeks, and then we will go back to whatever I had planned before, because they just kind of dropped this on my head out of nowhere, which I definitely appreciate. But the plans are a little bit different. Our colony is going okay so far, I would say. A couple little bit of struggle bus moments, but I think we've regulated since then. Is this dormant now? Oh, no. Okay, well, we might need to find a new oxygen source because that turning off at this time is not ideal. I guess I'll mop this up and start to get the rest of that done. Or rather, get this research so we can see when it's going to turn back on. I think our focus for this episode is going to be being entirely self-sustainable on all of the things that we have here. So right now we are burning a hole in our pocket when it comes to phosphorite. It is going down at a way quicker rate than we are recreating it. So we're going to expand these out as far as we need to be self-sustaining with 7 duplicants. If I can take more, I will, but my focus right now is just to make sure that we can live in this for a while. I really like the way that somebody put it in the comments, which was saying that it's not so much about, like, overtaking the land that you have, it's about learning to live where you are. And they're doing a good job with this in the sense of, like, if I were to start changing this to more normal temperatures, all of my base would start melting. It'd be a huge mess. I also don't really have the tools to do that right now. I don't think we have the... food sustainability. Also, the temperature ranges of all these are very low, so that was a really good way of putting that. I like that a lot when somebody said that, so thank you. That was a good piece of insight. Research-wise, let's see what we need to go for. We really need to start getting our shipping up, and that's what I was talking about in terms of, like, everything is just taking too long to do because my duplicants are having to do everything by hand. We also need to start thinking about getting some power going. The biggest thing that we have to work with... By the way, this is called wood now and not lumber, so that's interesting that they changed the name for that. Wonder if people didn't translate it as much, but I don't know. So, we do have wood, which means we have the ability to create more carbon dioxide so that we can get a little bit more oxygen out, which is probably going to be our best bet, considering that we don't have polluted water, at least for a little while. Another thing we could do... And I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but we could start setting up a sublimation station. That's what this is called. I never remember what this is called, but that's what it is, apparently. And we could set up something like this to create some oxygen for us, and we could put our duplicants on double bathroom breaks. Because in theory, I guess I don't know 100% for sure, but if I was going to try the previous challenge that I did, which was the Ultra Supreme Max Difficulty Challenge, I was going to use sublimation stations pretty heavily to see if we could... I don't know if I can fit another one in here. I guess I don't really need this wall. I don't even know why this is here. I was going to see if that would be enough to sustain duplicants in terms of oxygen on by itself. So as long as we have a lot of dirt, which we have a good amount, and we are producing... that might be the way we can produce oxygen for a little while, at least until this wakes up again. So I'm going to analyze that with one of my duplicants when they get a chance. So sublimation station is what we're going to be doing for oxygen for the time being. We need to get our wood power up. I'm going to put a little bit of it up, probably not a lot. I just need to save duplicant time at this point. So that's going to be my first focus. And we're also going to be keeping an eye on all of our resources. I think one of the first things I need to do is expand this Mammoth area and start to get more of them ranched, because we are most definitely burning through phosphorite faster than we can replace it. And if that happens, we're out of food. Plus, with all the shipping, we need to get something set up so that we have a way to get the food from these Mammoths as soon as possible. So there's a whole bunch of eggs here. We could hook these up to... I guess if we really need to grow our population, that's going to be the biggest thing it's for. We could hook these up to some incubators and incubate these to get them out a little bit quicker, which I might do. I know everybody was such a fan of all the egg micro and juggling that we had to do earlier, so let's bring that back. Yeah. Every run should just be only that. No, I'd never do that. That'd be horrible. So these Mammoths, I think, let's see what kind of space they take up. I think it says, where does it say? There we go, 16 cells. So 96 tile room is the biggest a stable can be. I think that's 6. Yeah, I think that's 6 Mammoths, if I'm doing my math right. I don't know, whatever, we'll find out. No, yeah, I don't know, whatever. All right, anyway. So I think that's 6, and if it's not, we'll take one out. But we're going to expand this out just to a full room, just to get these Mammoths some space to graze on the food that they will be eating, which will just be one of these plants. And these plants have been doing really well. I am shocked that the amount of food that these things need is basically taken care of by one of these plants. At least as far as I can tell. I haven't seen them having any food problems, and these haven't been growing to the point that they're ready to harvest, so this seems like about the minimum. So yeah, that's a kind of an overview of what we're up to here. So let's get some of these systems built out really quickly. I think I will build out our power setup because we're going to be asking a little bit more of it. We still only really have one manual generator. So I need that. I need smart batteries. I think that research is on the way. If it's not, then we need to get it. Nope, it's right here. So we do need to get that. So I guess we'll just kind of be expanding and getting our research up, and then we will set up our wood generators, which I have literally never built before because I haven't needed to, and they've also felt so horrifically inefficient. But now that we actually could use the carbon dioxide, I think we're going to do that. So yeah, let's get on top of those builds, and I'll come back in a little bit when there's more stuff to talk about. Okay, my duplicants have been busy clearing out an area so that we can build our power generation or power plant, whatever we want to call it. Power generation room. My names are terrible. So let's build that. I'm going to build this out of some igneous rock for the time being. Yeah. I was debating making this out of insulated tile, but I'm so low on igneous rock that I don't know if that's really a good idea. How much does this insulate? I'm going to need to burn this for fuel anyway, so maybe I shouldn't use that. I don't know. We'll come back and replace this if we feel like we need to. But what I'm going to do is we are going to use the mercury for something that I just thought of, which is going to be for a power control station. These things will basically consume refined metals, and mercuries are a refined metal the last I heard. But if the mercury can stay cold enough, which maybe I shouldn't be building tiles like this on the bottom. No, this is instantly going to melt the mercury, because the mercury melting point is way lower than that. Okay, never mind. This isn't as good of an idea as I thought. If I could keep this area super cool, it would be, because the mercury otherwise, as far as I can tell, is pretty useless. Anyway, so let's say we have a power control station, which I'm probably still going to do. I don't know for sure yet. But we need to put it inside a little room that is going to house our generators. And our generators are going to be these guys, these wood burners. They're going to produce a hilarious amount of carbon dioxide, so I'm going to leave the bottom open with airflow tiles just so that it can flow down and into this area where all of my alveo vera plants are being created. We're also just going to need a... where is this? Smart battery. Actually, we should probably bump everything over one, just because I want to have a transformer in here as well that we can transform down to the rest of the base. I'm also trying to make my power consumption as low as possible, because generally that creates heat, and the inside of this is not getting like warmed up by any means, but I feel like it's one of those things where if you don't pay attention and you add all the typical heat generators without thinking about it too much, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The interesting thing about this, and this is actually makes me very happy, is this might be a perfect time to use our anti-entropy thermonullifier. I've talked about this before in its own standalone video and basically said, like, it's fine, like, it's super slow, it's really weak, but at this stage of the game and without having a lot of infrastructure and needing cooling potentially this early, I'm nervous about it because I feel like it could be a problem. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But I feel like this could be an issue. This could be very useful. If we start up an electrolyzer, it's not like we have any shortage of water going on. We have plenty of that. We could start up an electrolyzer to get our oxygen flowing, but that could also be used to cool down a bunch of stuff too. So if we generated oxygen, ran it through here, I'm not sure how much we could actually push through this and keep it super cool. But if we keep it really cool, that could be used to cool all this stuff and keep the inside of our base extremely cold. Just to paint the picture of what we're trying to avoid here, -14 is when this starts to not grow. I have removed a lot of these plants, by the way, because our food keeps going up and I keep removing this. So this is why I like feeling these things out rather than just like mathing everything to death, because the math won't always line up the way it's supposed to, because you have a whole bunch of other sources going on. You have natural things growing. You could find food as you're digging around. Anyway, let me get off my soapbox here. I've removed a whole bunch of these, but if we start getting down to points where these won't grow, like for example, this is sitting at like -23. It's only 8 degrees away from stopping its growth, and if that stops growing, or if this stops growing, then everything just falls apart. And we can't have that, so I'm only trying to get ahead of the cooling, because it's not like doing it is going to hurt us if we worry about our cooling, but not doing it could definitely end the game. So I want to stay focused on things that could potentially be a big problem. And if I can get out ahead of it using something like this, we might just want to set up a little like self-cooling oxygen setup. And I think I have all the tools for it. The only thing that I don't have is metal that can resist a lot of heat, so we might unfortunately have to run this a little bit less efficient than I would want to. I don't even have it researched yet. But if we let those things get hot, I don't see any metals that would really resist it that well, like say a gold amalgam or a steel or something like that. Hey, what about mercury? Let's build it out of that and just have everything melt again. Man, the mercury is really annoying. So yeah. Let's get back to this, which I've just been delaying, but it's worked out because my duplicates are busy working on it while I'm talking. So I'm just going to hook it up to a smart battery. Smart batteries are OP. Everybody should use them. And then just going to run a heavy watt wire up into our transformer. And then this is just going to be transformed down into the rest of our grid. I'm only covering the basics here because not everybody that watches this has watched all my other videos where I cover this stuff in depth. So if you're just looking to copy some of these setups, this is the basics of something that I would do. The smart battery in particular is very important only because that will limit how much these things are running. You don't want them running around the clock because you might not necessarily need power. Like, let's say everybody's asleep and there's basically nothing going on in your base that's demanding power. Why would you still be generating it at that time? So the smart battery is used to turn these things off when they're no longer needed to be running. So this will basically just run boundlessly as it is right now. But if we allow the smart battery to turn it off, as soon as our batteries are full, which they are sitting up here, or once the smart battery gets set up, you can see right now there's no point in running this because these batteries are full. So anyway, what I've been explaining like 10 times by now is if you have your smart battery, it will turn these things off once your batteries are filled up to a good amount. This will also become useful when we have a duplicate that can do it, which we're also going to need to spec one of them out for building our shipping system. I usually like to use the builder for it because that's what they're going to be focusing on anyway. So let's rebuild this station. That's going to jiggle up Harold, who I think is our builder right now. And let's throw that down here. We'll get him respec'd, and then we'll start working on our shipping system after this because we'll have the infrastructure that we need to have this start making sense. So yeah, kind of just talking a lot, but there's a lot of different thoughts that I have in this going on all at once. So I think the order that we need, first of all, we need to save duplicate time for sure. Second of all, we need to automate our ranching. So both of those point towards shipping next. We're fine on a lot of our resources, and especially after I dug up like 2/3 of our farm. Our phosphorite's starting to stabilize a little bit more, so I'm not as worried. So that's not a concern. Oxygen's not a concern. I think the biggest concern is just dupe labor. So I need to save on that as much as I can. And there we go. So here's the smart battery working. You can set the thresholds of like, I want my batteries to stay between, say, like 20 and 80%. Maybe we could raise it up a little bit more. Let's say 40 and 80%. So if it's ever not within those ranges, or more specifically, if it's ever drops below 40, it'll turn on. If it's ever above 80, it'll turn back off. So there you go. Kind of a good way to monitor these things and not let them waste a bunch of power. So, let's jiggle up Harold here. That's right, jiggle up. Find a way to use jiggle up in conversation in the next couple days. That's your homework as you're going about your day. All right, so yeah, I think the idea is going to be to get our shipping systems up, and once I have Harold respect, and once we have enough metal refined, which we're going to need a lot of, we don't actually have that much. I don't know where I'm getting copper from. The other thing that's kind of annoying is, like, the metals that I can refine right now are really valuable for other stuff, but we have a lot to work with, so I guess this is all going to be iron. So anyway, I need to refine a whole bunch of metal before we start any of our shipping systems. When we do, we'll talk about that, and we'll see where all of our resources stand after things will start to, like, regulate a little bit more. And you know what? Since we've done this in the past, let's just take another duplicate now. Only to keep the pressure on us and also to keep progress moving forward a little bit better. This is a very good dupe. Devon. I haven't seen one of them in a long time, but here we go. This is a buff, biohazardous, squeamish dupe, but germ resistance will really not be that big of a deal, and not doing doctoring errands is wonderful, because you really don't have duplicants doing that very often anyway. Devon's just going to be like a generalist, so let's go ahead and print that. We should have plenty of food and oxygen for this duplicant. We have a bedroom as well. We should have a coat sitting on the ground, so go put your coat on there, Devon. So there we go. Yeah, let's go ahead and wait until Harold is jiggled up, and then we will start setting up our shipping stuff when we have enough refined metals. Alright, one thing that I'm realizing about these seals is the seals don't eat the tree, even though that's what it says. It says their diet is bonbon gourd. But really what they're eating is the nectar from the tree. So I had looked at this earlier. Let's take a look at this. Nectar doesn't seem all that useful on its own, to be honest. Producing sucrose, I'm not really sure what you'd get from that yet. Maybe it has a new purpose, because in just regular spaced out, it doesn't do all that much. Like, the rockets that you can make out of it are like, okay. But I guess the reason that this exists is so that these things can eat it. But I noticed that this branch productivity, if you hover over some of the other spots in this, it'll actually tell you what's going on with the nectar production. So here's the nectar production rate, which is like almost nothing, which is why these are starting to starve, even though it felt like 2 of these trees should be fine. The branch productivity is based upon how illuminated they are. So I'm going to need more of these carved quartz to throw in here. This is at least just a cheap way to light something. The regular lights is something that I'm interested in too. Let me see how much they actually produce, because I don't know this off the top of my head. 1800 lux. So we could just pay for the power to light these things, but I'm going to grab all of the quartz that we can from around the map and start adding those to these trees and see how much we can improve the production rate of these. This is why some of the trees are really like fat when they get a whole bunch of nectar in them. So this one, I don't think it says how much is currently in there right now. At least not when it's, I don't know. I don't really know how to tell. It feels like there's just missing information here, but there's definitely more nectar in these ones than these ones because of how, like, you know, swollen up they are. So that's going to be the plan here, just to try to help these out a little bit more, because these are really producing almost nothing right now. But we might have to kick it up just to make sure that we get enough ethanol for everything. Plus, they've been kind of neglected by being off in their own little spot, since I don't want to have to pay for the snow for the domestication cost. I guess you'd probably get more nectar out of it if you had domesticated it, but again, I don't know of a renewable way to get snow, and that's just something once we're out, then the whole thing will just crumble. So I'm trying to just go about it in a very, like, measured way. So we're going to grab more of these, and I think what I'm going to do is move them to a spot that's like on either side, because if you look at the light overlay, it kind of spreads equally between these, but I want all of these branches to be as illuminated as possible. As far as I know, also there's only 5 spots for branches, so for this one is really only going to get 3 of the 5. But I think if I plant it either maybe I should just place it at the bottom of the tree. Maybe that would be better, because if you really want it to be centralized, then I guess that's the best place to do it. So I guess I'll put them at the base of each tree and see how much we can crank this up, but I'm going to be digging around to grab some more of these. So Yeah, we've got a couple of them all discovered and ready to get moved over there. So there you go. A couple more. We'll see how this does, and we'll keep our eye on it. I do want to have more seals in here eventually, because I do want to play around with the stuff that they drop when they die and cook with it. But yeah, we'll get there in a later video more than likely. So, we should have a little bit of refined metal now. Let's start setting up our central shipping area. So, the way I usually like to do my shipping is I will set up an area that all of the stuff on the map gets sent to. And it'll be all in one spot, and then we'll have a whole bunch of conveyor loaders that send stuff to different places. So, we will have things being swept up from all around the map that will eventually get dropped off here. And I'll have a bunch of different lines usually, so that we can have it be shipping from different locations and not disrupting the line. So this is one that's very metal intensive, and this will be a good use of all this extra metal ore that we have from our metal rich traits. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and set some of this up, and then for example, let's find a place to start sweeping. Let's say, well, we need to send a bunch of stuff away from here, so let's set up a shipping system to handle this. So if we have a auto sweeper within range of each of these plants, something like this, this will also need to be fed ice, and we might as well do that automatically. So the tools we're going to need is a conveyor loader, and I need to research something. Actually, let me cancel this. This is not the greatest spot. I need to make sure they overlap by one tile so they can both just share one machine. So set up a conveyor loader, and we will also get into our research tree and research the thing that we need. We need to get into our applied sciences, which is our radiation-based research. So we might not do that quite yet. I might just drop all the ice on the ground. I don't think there's anywhere else that it needs to go right now, so that will at least help. So I'll just drop all the ice on the floor for the time being. So any ice that we ship down here, I'll just connect it up to the top. So the idea is, look, we're going to have two lines. One of these lines is going to be for ice, and the other one that I usually like to go like right up the middle is going to be what returns it back to this central area. So any of the oxalite that it produces, actually I should probably not be that far down. Let me not block all this stuff. Sure, okay, that's probably fine. So we're going to ship everything from down here back to the center except for the ice. So I want the ice to be staying down here so that these auto sweepers can automatically load these things. So let's get into our liquefiables. Oh wait, we want to say everything except for ice. And then the actual ice itself will be on a second line that will run down here and will drop off at the place we need it to be. The other thing we could do, I was debating if we could just drop it all the way down this chute and have it loaded that way, but maybe? Is that a good idea? I don't know. Maybe I could have it be put into a bin. Let's try that. Let's be cheapos and let's save on this. So I'm gonna deconstruct this. And then if we have our bin full of ice, we can just have it drop all the way down to the bottom because we'll have a vent right here. It'll drop all the way down. We will have an auto sweeper pick it up, and then it will get stored in a bin. Let's just put it like in the middle here. Then we won't actually even need the rest of this infrastructure because we're going to have something bringing the ice over and dropping it off here. So going to get rid of one of these lines and help save ourselves some construction time and some metal. Cancel all this. Then we will put up a bin like so, which we can just put at a really low priority so our duplicates don't do anything with it. And if they are doing anything with it, then that means there's nothing else left to do, which is fine. Like if they want to move the ice manually, that's fine. That'll save us some power. But this is okay, let's put our one more thing here, by the way. It's our conveyor chute. Let's get all this hooked up to power as well. And let's rush this part of it so we can at least see it running. So if we rush this part, the ice is going to get sent into this conveyor loader, going to come out of this chute, it'll fall all the way down the map, it'll land right here, and then this auto sweeper should be, oh, it's not quite within range. I need to move this over now. Let's do this. Yeah, I need to move it over even one more. But the idea is it'll grab it from here, it'll load it inside the bin, and then this arm, or this auto sweeper from over on this side can actually reach this bin and supply everything. So, Yeah, let me actually get this all built out so I can explain it just a little bit better, because I feel like I'm just stumbling over myself. So we'll see this up in action here in a second, and we'll also see the byproduct, which is sweeping out all the junk that has fallen down here over time, and getting it back into the center of our base where it's a little easier to access. Okay, now that we've made heads or tails of this build, let's go ahead and get it started. So we want to ship everything out of here except for the ice, because we want the ice to stay and be used as food for these. So I'm having a hard time doing both at the same time. And then we want to store any ice that we get in here, and I'm going to put it at pretty low priority. Let's say, actually even 1 would probably be fine. But the issue that I have is, can it actually be that low? They really need a setting, and I know there's a mod for it, I just don't like relying on mods. But there needs to be a setting where stuff can only be loaded by automation. Because what I need to do here is basically move the stuff that falls down into this bin, but then the priority of these has to be higher than that bin, but I also want this priority to be high enough that my duplicants come down and harvest when it's time, but they don't want to load this all the time. So I think what I'm gonna have to do, I guess, I mean, we could just do it temporarily, like we could just have it ask for a whole bunch of ice and then we could just drop it on the floor. So let's do that. We'll just have to manually keep our eye on it a little bit. This is all really just in service of making sure that we are not having to create an entire line just for ice if we can just drop it down the big pit. So there you go. Here's the setup in action, basically. We are taking... Oh, wait. What? Oh, this one's loading the ice. Okay. So anything that's not ice is getting shipped out of here. It's coming along this line, which let's get the materials overlay on. Whoops, sorry. I mean the shipping. Comes up here, drops out of a conveyor chute there. Any other ice that we might collect around the area, like if it gets shipped to the central location, we're just going to send it here, and it will get put into this conveyor loader. It'll drop out of the chute, it'll fall all the way back down, and it'll be available for fuel for all this stuff. So there. This ought to take some time away from our duplicants in terms of like them having to come down here and load the ice manually. I'm going to replicate this setup for a whole bunch of places. So for our ranches, all that kind of stuff, our food area, anywhere that's growing stuff, anywhere that makes sense to have materials be shipped instead of having duplicants running it around. I'm going to do that now. I've done it a bunch of times in other videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, at least not more than what we've done so far. So I'll just kind of set something up, and then we will have our sorting rooms for the critters, which I've also talked about a lot. Just to make sure that all the eggs are getting out of here and in a spot that makes sense so we don't have to manually bring critters back all the time. So yeah, let me get that done and then we will move on to a couple other things, and I think we're going to call it good for this video. Alright, I think our shipping stuff is all up and ready to go, with the one exception that we'll get to. One thing that's becoming a problem, and one thing that's actually interesting with this DLC, is before, if you had a plant that had some kind of problem with it, like let's say it's in the wrong atmosphere, or it wasn't getting fertilized, or whatever, it would just sit in that state forever until you fixed it. But these ones will just die, and I don't think that they drop seeds. I'm not 100% sure on that. Need to double check, but when the plants die, they just like, yeah, they're not working anymore, obviously. And the issue that I ran into here is all of the food for these Bamas died because it got too hot, which was something I've been concerned about this entire time. So we need to fix that first of all. So I think what I'm going to do is just have all of this ethanol routed into a bunch of reservoirs so that we can let the line run for a little while until it basically disperses a whole bunch of heat. We'll also use the thing I was just talking about, I think in the last video, where you can now build stuff out of metal ore. Like, you can build liquid pipes out of metal ore to hopefully increase the amount of temperature that it shares with other things. So I'm going to try to keep it cool with ethanol, and I'm just going to pump out all the ethanol that's down here. So I'm working my way down to both of them. I'm going to pump in all of this ethanol, and then I will go down and pump in all this ethanol just to help keep that area cool. But yeah, even here too, started to get too warm, and the plants here died. So we are definitely running into the issue I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where I'm nervous about cooling this even though it's already frozen. So we definitely need to think about that. Oh, speaking of which, here you go. This will prove out what we are seeing. Okay, no, it looks like it does drop seeds. So I think someone must have, or ice must have melted, or there's mercury down here. I hate the mercury so much. It causes so many problems. But yeah, there you go. These plants got flooded and they died. The other thing is we lost a tree in here to this same problem, and I thought that this might be an issue where if these seals are constantly putting out liquid, there's no way to really prevent them from putting out liquid on top of the trees. And then if a second liquid ever gets on top of there, you can see just a tiny little bit of liquid carbon dioxide, which is going to be common because we have duplicants breathing in this area. Once again, how dare they breathe? It's just going to flood the tree and kill it. So we lost a tree here, and this whole setup is basically useless now because we're just not getting enough out of it. So what I'm going to try, I know I've talked a lot about how I don't want to do this, but I think we have to now. Let's put a farm tile down. Let's try to get this tree going, and then we also might need to put down like a sweepy dock. But I'm not 100% sure if that's going to invalidate the room. I'm pretty sure it won't, but yeah, we need to do a little bit of rebuilding here to allow a sweepy to clean up all this liquid, and then I'm going to need to go remember to empty the sweepy. I don't know if we actually have this researched right now. It doesn't seem like it. It would also be really funny if we didn't have that access to that yet because we don't have the right type of research. Sweep. Where are you? There we go. Okay, no, we could get it. Cool. So we'll go ahead and research that. We'll have to set up a sweepy dock, but man, these things are causing a lot more problems than I thought. But they're also, I don't know. I'm going to try to just supercharge one tree. We have a lot of snow, and I'm going to see how much that'll actually give me. And then the sweepy will just help keep it clear. So let's go ahead and just drop a seed in here for the bonbon gourd. There we go. And we will just centralize all of these quartz over to this one location right in the middle of it. And try to give it as much light as possible. Try to max this tree out for the snow that we're giving it. I guess if you're not maxing out the tree, then I don't know what you're doing, because you're kind of just wasting the resources that you'd be putting into here. So we're going to see how much that does with just one, and we'll hook up a sweepy dock there as well. By the way, the reason I complain about a sweepy dock is because why do they not just empty the liquids automatically? The fact that you have to have a duplicant go over there and get it out kind of defeats, well, it doesn't totally defeat the purpose, but it makes it really annoying. By the way, I found a reason to have this mercury. I'm going to use it as a place to drown the extra critters. And yes, drowning in mercury, that sounds horrible. And I'm sure it will be, but I should probably explain our setup here. So all of our shipping for everything is basically going to grab everything that we need, except for any food that might need to go into any of these. And fortunately, we don't really have a setup for that quite yet. My duplicants are going to still have to manually put in the phosphorite, only because the phosphorite's going to be distributed to a few different places right now, and I don't have the right building to allow it to kind of like build up and be usable from these without dropping it on the floor. So I can't really do that yet. You can see our ethanol is already gone, but it did cool down this area quite a bit, so I think we might be able to replant for the time being. Copy settings. So we'll get those replanted. We'll get all the ethanol here. I'll build a quick loop to keep this area cool with that ethanol, because that ethanol should have plenty of energy in it. Yeah, and then the sweepy dock up here ought to do that. But anyway, what I was saying about all of the eggs. So we're going to have 3 different rooms for our 3 different critters. This is basically going to be an overflow where a bunch of eggs we're going to drop. And they will stay in here and turn into critters so that my duplicants can pull them out and put them back in these rooms. I've talked about this setup a few times, and it's fairly complicated, so if you want more detail on it, I have a standalone video on ranching hatches, where I use the exact same setup. It doesn't have 3 rooms because there's only 1 critter, but I think you get the point. So, we need to set up our shipping lines to be sending the right type of critter to the right type of room. So this one is going to be for the seals. We need the seal eggs. There we go. Second one, I think, is for the flocks. Yep. So let's get the flocks eggs here. And the third one is going to be for... I just want to call them beefalo, because that's just what they'll always look like to me. But Bamini or Bamini eggs, whatever. So the idea here is you're going to see the sweeping in action. We have a lot of these eggs. These look hilarious on the rail, by the way. They're all going to drop out here, but it's only going to drop out until I have a certain amount. So once I have 3 critters or 3 eggs in here, it's just going to bypass that part of the setup, and it's going to continue down and go into this. And in here, they're going to hatch. I think the little ones should be okay in this space. I have no clue what's going to happen if you trapped them in a spot like this and then they grew up. I guess they'd probably get entombed or something. But yeah, this setup is basically just going to keep these rooms populated with a few of them at a time, and they are going to be hooked up to automation so that whenever these rooms are below their capacity, it'll turn these critter pickups on and they will grab the critters out and move them here automatically. It looks very complicated, but once you kind of distill it down to its parts, it's not that bad. It's pretty straightforward. So I think all we need to do for the rest of this video is get this setup working. And then I think we're going to be done. I think we'll have been fully ranching here, and we'll get a better idea of how well this self-sustains, which was our objective at the beginning, but I don't think we're really going to know until we have a good amount of time with everything kicking in fully. Because once all these eggs hatch, by the way, this is going to be a ridiculous amount of meat, to the point that I don't know if we're actually going to be able to store all of it nicely. Fortunately, the base is very cold, so at least it's automatically refrigerated, but yeah. For sure, in the next video, we're going to need to get some kind of more permanent cooling solution up, so I think that's when we're going to deal with this anti-entropy thermonullifier. Word. So yeah, I think let's clean up that last thing. I'll get the ethanol spinning here as well, and then I think we're going to call it a day, and hopefully be back with the next video really soon afterward. Okay, this is about what this chamber is looking like nowadays. I'm going to add 3 lights up here just to see if I can get this to max out. I might add a 4th and a 5th right here, depending on how much more I think I need. But I do want to max out every branch so it's all growing as much as possible for the snow that we're putting in. And hopefully this can support an entire full room of seals who are starving right now because this tree takes forever to grow. So yeah, we have the branches just about to spring up, so maybe I can buy enough time talking about something else in the meantime. The other thing that we just talked about was creating this loop of ethanol. This ethanol is quite cold, and we might as well get all of the energy out of it that we can before we wind up spending it on the plants. So it's just in a loop here, and the loop basically just keeps ethanol constantly circulating so that we are getting all of the cold ethanol out of here and spreading it around so it can cool off the rest of the stuff. Of course, this is not a permanent solution at all. This is just because we have a lot of ethanol already, so we might as well use something like this just to keep this area cool. So that ought to hold it down for at least a little while. We're only really having any cooling problems right around here, but this is probably back to a good temperature again to the point that I could plant, so I should probably just do that. These branches grown yet? Let's see what they're at. 99. Okay, they should all start sprouting up here in just a second. And then we'll see what kind of level they're at in terms of... This game has such a problem when it says like 100%, but it's not really 100%. I see that all the time. Okay, there we go. So we're producing a good amount of nectar, 96 grams per second. It looks like we're only getting about 3/4 productivity on all of the branches. So there might be a better way to position these. I'll need to figure out, like... You know what I wonder? Or maybe we could try this. I don't know if sweepies can actually go over ledges or not, but I wonder if you could, like, put it here? And have it shining across? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to optimize these. If you could put it right there, that'd be great, but I don't know of any way to do that. So we will report back in terms of like how effective this is. I really don't know what to expect from it, only because I don't have a lot of faith in these seals to begin with. But if they do turn out to be cool, and if this does turn out to be a lot of nectar and useful stuff that could come through, then that would be really nice. But I think there's a couple of things we still need to massage out of it. Obviously, you could bring in a bunch of shine bugs and stuff like that, but that would also cramp the room and crowd it, and I'm trying to max this out the best I can. The shine bugs also would kind of drift all over the place and not really be all that focused, so that's not ideal. I don't know. This seems like kind of problematic right now, and I'm the least impressed with those ones so far, but we'll see. Okay, so we faced a handful of challenges here. I think we're in better shape in terms of resources. Our phosphorite dropped for a little while only because these plants weren't growing, so it still remains to be seen if we're able to sustain ourselves just on the critters and everything that we have in here already. Our wood and carbon dioxide situation is really out of hand. These produce so much carbon dioxide, it's insane. This is why I would never really recommend using these. But this is a rare case where we don't really have anything else to use, so I don't know. Next episode, we will definitely get into all of our water, and we will start producing oxygen over here so that we don't have to do any weird, like, dances with any of this polluted water and stuff. We'll be able to produce that oxygen, hopefully cool it, and also provide enough cooling just to keep, like, this area cool. Because that's, like, really the only area that's producing a decent amount of heat on a regular basis. So, yeah, here we sit. Very blue still, so that's good, but definitely have some work to do. So, yeah, so far so good. All right, I'll try my best to be back with another episode tomorrow. We've gotten pretty fortunate getting the first 3 out on the first 3 days, but we'll see if I can get it out in time. Nevertheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.